I'm here to introduce Rathika ma'am. Dr. Rathika Murugesan is a psychiatrist and founder of Chennai Minds. She had done her MBBS in Madras Medical College in 1999. Then she had done her MRC Psych and CCT Psychiatry in UK. She lived for 22 years there and written in 2018. She has written books pertaining to mental health and feminism. She gives talk about mental health in YouTube channels. Her upcoming book is on superstition and mental health by women. Over to you. Hello.
So, okay, now I'm audible. Yes. Good evening, everyone, and first of all, thank you all for being here, despite a very interesting program happening in the next room. So today we are going to talk about sexual politics. It's an extremely heavy book, but there is a reason we have to read it. Apart from the fact that it was written by a woman, it is also a very significant book. So what has sex got to do with politics? I'm going to make it interactive because if I'm going to talk about the very heavy stuff of sexual politics, then very soon you're going to, you are going to all get bored. So what has sex got to do with politics? What is the relationship between those two? Anyone wants to volunteer? The youngsters especially, the women?
It's generally the male-female that pertains to one. And also the relationship that people have with each other, like the family or the counterparts. That's my take.
Okay. Exactly. So when we're talking about politics, I think we talk about having meetings and elections, but that is not politics. Politics is about power control. Power control not just between the genders, but also between races, between the caste, between classes. So this kind of a power control relationship is politics. And so sex somehow somewhere seeps into this. And the sexual nature of stratification is everywhere. Everywhere there is an inequality. Everywhere when there is a dominance, sex somehow comes into it. So we'll see how it
no, actually, like sex politics. One thing particularly come to mind is like men can marry 5 to 6 women,
yes,
but a woman cannot marry so many men, and she will be called immoral. So that's one point.
It's not like she cannot marry. She's
So
not
she's not allowed to marry.
Yeah.
She's called immoral, but men can have 15.
There's a difference between cannot and
Yeah. So, who is this Kate Millett? So, she was a feminist, she was a social activist, and not just that, she was also into this anti-psychiatry movement. So, she came out as being bisexual, so she was quite a thing during her time. She was in the 1930s. And this book, it came out in 1970s, and it was actually her PhD thesis. So, despite a heavy book, because she touches upon historical facts, our thinking, our social and cultural, the way we interact with each other, we cannot divorce it from contemporary literature. We cannot divorce it from media, influenced by what is happening around us. So she picks out all those contemporary writers and novelists of her times, and she calls out the hypocrisy in each and every one of them, including Freud. So Freud, unfortunately, also calls it, and that's very valid, her arguments. So, the theme of this book is that, every sexual encounter that a man and a woman, this I say within quotes because, she also talks about the heterosexual coitus. So when we think about coitus, we immediately think about heterosexual sex because that's how we are conditioned. But then heterosexual sex or coitus, the term itself, it not just encompasses a relationship between a woman and a man. It's more than that. It encompasses or it just holds together the entire cultures, the entire society's attitudes, values and culture and what it stands for. So every sexual encounter in her opinion is an act to enslave a woman. So every sexual encounter is like that. And so that's the politics there. So power dominant relationship. And why does it still have to be like that? Because that's the way we have to be. That's the way the entire society acts. So we are a smaller unit of a larger society. So only if there is a dominance, a power relationship there, patriarchy can be in place. Only if patriarchy is in place, then a family unit can function, and only if a family unit functions, then we have a functioning society. So unfortunately, even the people who were, the feminists and people who were talking against patriarchy did not understand what they were standing up against. It's not just, we can easily bring about a political change. We can just, pass a law and say divorce is legal. But have we got there? Have we got into a cultural mindset where we still accept divorce and talk about it openly? No. So cultural change is very, very difficult. It's very easy to bring about a political change. So these are the things that she says. So that's the theme of it. And she, if you talk about the key themes one more time, she says that patriarchy is both political and cultural, and it's the source of sexual oppression. And unfortunately, for a sexual revolution, we need to dismantle the family structure. So that's how it's going to work. So, and she also points out this hypocrisy among women, where women somewhere kind of are socialized and conditioned to become the enslaved one. She calls it the interior colonization, because that they have to, it's part of the process where they are socialized to become like that. So, okay, so what is sexual freedom in your opinion? How does sexual freedom look out? I mean, how will it look like? What will be the outcomes of it?
No, it doesn't happen in a country like India because it's a very conventional country.
Okay.
In Europe, we always had boyfriend-girlfriend culture.
Okay.
So there they had sexual freedom. Here, sex is, like something very moral. You get married, you have to stay with one person. It's not only now, even in Ramayana, Rama had to marry Sita. He is called as Ekapatni Ratasa, which means a person has got only one wife and very loyal to her.
Okay.
All this was some few years back, sir.
What more?
All these were few years back.
Really?
Well, India is also slowly changing. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I'll show you million people, who follow what you say.
Oh, okay. So if we mean to say that sexual freedom is about having
Sexual freedom cannot be interpreted as sex freedom.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So
Let us
if,
take it in a different way.
and also, why do we have to say that what a man is doing, like say, as you said, having 5 wives, is a kind of a standard that everyone should follow out to. So that is patriarchy in itself, isn't it? So when we say a man is free to, marry 5 wives, why do we set it as a standard and say that we have to?
We have a story where a woman also have 5 husbands.
Yes.
And Mahabharata, that's the only one case.
And that wasn't actually.
One case. Single case.
So sexual politics, my understanding is, sexual freedom is, whether it's a man or women have their choice to do, exercise anything in the society, free will to think. It's nothing to do with sex.
Yeah.
It's about their interest, intention, and there is nothing to curtail. If there is a curtailment, it should be for everybody. Not just because I'm a woman, I'm not supposed to do this. I think that's my.
Yes, and also every sexual encounter, suppose every sexual encounter is enslaving a woman, and then if she has 5 sexual partners, will it not make her more enslaved? So without, without tackling those interpersonal dynamics between a man and a woman, especially in the bedroom, how are we going to, free a woman, or how are we going to empower her so that she frees herself sexually? So that's about sexual freedom, isn't it? Where she is, who she is within the confines of a bedroom, and that many people we don't talk. But then that has got a wider repercussions, politically and socially as well. So this book is about 400 pages, and it's got 3 main chapters. So one is the sexual politics per se, and then she talks a bit about the historical background, where she talks about the sexual revolution and the counter revolution also. So the 2 main very contrasting societies. One was in Nazi Germany and one was in Soviet Union. And then she, those literary reflections where she picks up on every author. I just want to highlight about one author. One is Jean Genet. So he was a French novelist, and he was born in 1910, and he was also an activist. He was a gay man. And now we know that he's not the right person to represent gay people, because all his works, he had written some works like The Thief's Journey, The Balcony, Gay and After, and books like that.
Most of them are plays.
Most of it were
Not
plays.
novels.
And then the kind of what the message he brings out is that it's again homosexuality seen as something like failed masculinity. So that's how he brings it across. Or again that there is he stratifies the masculine and the feminine, and then he talks about the manly types, and then almost as if he deserves to be attacked by his pimp because he's gay, and those kind of. So she brings to highlight all these things. I mean, in her time, this was in 1970s, this book came out. These are all significant things, but even then coming out as gay was something difficult, and then pointing out, people's hypocrisy this way was a big thing. So, so that's one thing, a literary figure I want to point out, and I don't want to, touch upon, every literary figure because that's going to bore you out. So, she feels that the sex, that this is the crux of it. She thinks that going into the very primordial kind of act of sex, so that's where everything begins. And from there comes everything else, like the society and this thing. So she calls it a power game. And then, as I, also talked about before about the coitus and what that actually represents. And I think we already talked about what is sexual freedom, and I think you came up with your ideas. So then the first chapter itself starts with this 2 or 3 encounters of sex. So it's all about where the steamy sex is happening, and she picks up from 2 or 3 authors. One is Henry Miller's Sexes, and here this hero, the protagonist, he's actually seducing his best friend's wife. And so the sexual encounter happens, but then every language which is used there reeks of male aggression. So everything right from, muff or lascivious and all those derogatory terms for a woman, and then her cunt is fitting me like a glove, and all those kind of words reeks of male aggression. So the entire sexual encounter, when you read it, it sees how the dynamics, the power dynamics are playing there. It's only an act of male aggression. So this is what she also has written in 1971, another one, thesis, it's called Prostitution Papers. And she says that even an act of prostitution is not an exchange of sex, it's an exchange of power and degradation. So this is what, she says. And then what happens, I think this lady gets found out by her husband, and then she's penalized for it, she's punished for it. So almost that the frigidity of a woman is so important, and she can be punished if she's frigid, she can be punished if she's infidel to her husband. So these are the messages which comes out of that contemporary novel. And these are the things that the society, culture has learned. These are the things that people are reading, the youngsters are reading and internalizing as this is what is sex, this is what is romance. So this is what she calls out. Next she talks about Norman Mailer. So these are the main figures she's attacking. It's about, it's a novel called An American Dream. And here it's about, it's a play of heterosexual sodomy. So this protagonist here, he actually murders his wife. So, and that's because she was unfaithful. But he has a whole fleet of girlfriends, and he is supposed to be a star when it comes to anal sex. But then he particularly murders her because she is unfaithful to him, and the act of being unfaithful involved anal sex. So he couldn't actually take it. And after murdering, he actually goes and has sex with his maid. And that is actually, it's sodomy, it's heterosexual sodomy is what happens. So, and the words which are used here, for example, the maid, she's called Ruta, and that's for a reason. And that's actually, that's a very rude way to kind of symbolize the sexual act that is happening. So, these kind of, the acts that are played out and the words which are told. And for instance, it also is made to believe that the reader is given to understand that by murdering one woman, and buggering another, Rojak becomes a man. So this is what a man is about. You know, even the words like he's got the balls to do it. You know, it involves a male's anatomy. When you say he's aggressive, he's like, you know, he's got the guts to do it. So this is what it entailed at that point. You know, the kind of literary works. So these are the things that Millet actually brings to focus. Okay, so I think we did talk about coitus and things. So she moves on to talk about the theory of sexual politics. So and sex, as I've already mentioned, it's everywhere where there is a stratification, where there's a race involved, where there's a caste involved, where there is a class involved. Sex becomes sex by nature. A male and female becomes very rooted to it, and also the fact that you are given a sex from birth. I mean, gender is different from sex. Now we know that there are different, gender is not just binary. It is more than binary. It's a spectrum, or not even a spectrum, it's more than two. But then, to be, we have to give a genetic justification for patriarchy, isn't it? We have for patriarchy to work, everyone has to be put into boxes of male and a female, otherwise it's not going to work. If we say that too many genders, then, it's going to disrupt the whole system. So this is what, she comes up with. Okay, and what do you think is the purpose of a family? Why do you think there should be families in place all over the world?
It all happened the day we started owning properties. Prior to that, there was no families at all. We were working as a team. The man, like, the moment he realized that he was responsible for his child. Until then, there was no explanation how a child was born. Everybody thought that every men encountered a relationship with women contributed for them. But the time when they realized that only one man is responsible for that, then he started owning that. Then he expected that it's also part of the feudal system. He thought that his estate should be owned by somebody from his own blood. So that's how the family is involved.
Okay. But and what is perpetuating a family? Do we still need families?
Anybody else would like to?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So why do we need families?
It is the entity of life.
No, I mean, everybody cannot live.
Use this mic and speak.
Everybody cannot live alone. Like I live alone. I live alone. I'm a self-made person. I have a reason why I am there. So otherwise, everybody is sitting here. 94% they live in the family. They have some parents, who bring them up when they are very children. So they have to educate them. Somebody has to educate them. Somebody has to earn money. Somebody has to cook food. Somebody has to show love. So
Okay. But is there a choice there to have a family? Because it's almost like in the contemporary society, it's looked at as a failure if you do not have a family or you are separated or divorced, isn't it? That's true. So, how do you think we can change this?
Why should we
Anybody else
change?
would like to answer?
Why should we change?
The youngsters.
Anybody else? Yeah. You would like to say something?
I
No,
was
it's
saying,
okay. You can say anything.
Yeah, please. Let it be participating, yeah.
because the family is the entity of life. Okay, I mean, like,
Okay.
entity of life. I mean, like the basic form of living being is family. Okay, husband and wife, they're making children, giving children, I mean, educate the children. Again, they get old.
But can a family function without power dynamics?
Even power dynamic is there. Even between husband and wife. If wife IQ power is high, she will be dominating, irrespective of whatever politics we think.
So do you actually think that if we need egalitarianism within a society, that family is the first stumbling block? Do you think that? It's okay, you can disagree.
Family is the biggest block.
It's not a stumbling block, it's a building block.
So please speak with the.
So what I'm saying is that, I mean, like,
Sure, of course.
we are
Yes, sir.
human being, okay? We are
Okay.
man, male, female. So they are born together.
But then now we know that there are more than male and female.
Yeah. Even, I mean, we are brothers and sisters.
No, I'm talking about even the gender.
Gender, I mean, there's a concept called living together, even if boys and boys, girls and girls, okay, they are living, now it's like openly they're speaking up. Earlier it was like, in the form of identity.
Okay.
Now the society has been changed. So for example.
Have we changed?
Little bit, I mean, in a hidden form, I mean, but we are not openly speaking up, because if like I have a girlfriend or wife, okay, so my friend might be having a boyfriend,
Okay.
but you won't openly tell to everybody.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking, have we changed? What has to change fundamentally?
No answer. No,
Respect India, Abhi has to say. What has to fundamentally change? Yes, Abhi.
Very powerful questions, and I would say, I'm a psychotherapist. It's not as per se psychotherapist, from personally also I'm single. I was married but now I'm single, and I feel everywhere now people are like waking up to this concept. Like, why do I need a family? I'm happy alone. All those boundaries people are breaking slowly, very slowly. Maybe I would say hardly 1 to 2% of Indians are waking up to it. And if you take any other country apart from India, yes, they are very open to it, because they're not bounded by only heterosexual. They can have even gays and lesbians, they are much more open to it. But India also, it has come up like, I'm not for it or against it, that's the concept. People are like waking up to it, and they are realizing it is my liberty, my life. I live the way I want to live. And to some extent, yes, I live my life to my terms. Though I live with my parents, I draw my own, circles or whatever it is. I'm not saying I'm 100% liberated, or no, I won't say that. But then I have my own, boundaries. I have my own circles that I create.
Okay.
That way I say. Thank you.
Sunita. Because they
Break the burden. Some you cannot move it independently in so many burden. You can carry on the burden. Sometimes the dissonance also. That is the first scenario.
Okay. So, what has to fundamentally change is our consciousness. Without change, revolution happened to all this. The first sexual revolution around the Victorian time, around the 1830s to the 1930s. That was a time, something happened. Before that, they had, before all this Women Property Act and divorce laws and all came forward, women were actually had the chattel status. Chattel status means they were like furniture. So the men can actually, bring cows, this, that, along with a wife, and she lost her status, her civil status, as soon as she got married. I think that's still the case here, because I think marital rape is not criminal in India, which means that she loses her human, that's a human right, you can't get raped, whoever it is. So, since it is not, then she automatically loses her human rights the minute she gets married. And then also, apparently, they become one, the man and the woman, which means that a woman used to cease to exist. So these things changed with laws, they changed with laws, and then, at one point, even they were bringing in this Contagious Diseases Act, because they wanted to regulate prostitution. In fact, one of the when Nazi, was set up in Germany around the 1928. At that time, all the feminist movements were quite, well founded. But then that was their number one goal: dismantle that entire, feminist. Because what they wanted to create in the country, they wanted to create a smaller unit of it at home. So man looks after the nation, the woman looks after the home. So they didn't actually want the women to simply sit at home. They wanted her to be in professions, but then it had to be low-paid professions. So any amount of judges and lawyers and all that status, all that was ripped off. And even I think Hitler has written in his my main camp that the woman actually gets a status of a citizen the minute she's married. So at the time, actually contraception was illegal, because he didn't want her to have any control over her body. But at the same time, condoms were legal, which means that men could protect themselves from STDs, but then the women didn't have any control over her bodies where she could exert abortion and things like this. So, when the same thing happened in a contrast, Soviet Union after the October Revolution, 1917, Lenin, he put an end to all this. He, gave all kinds of liberties to women and children. They could choose their citizenship name and things like that. But why was it short-lived? Within 27 years, this came back to square one. So when Stalin came, 1936, again divorce was illegal. You were actually fined for divorce. Abortions were illegal because I think they wanted to increase the population. So it came back to square one, and then even the community child rearing that they had brought on, the onus went on the women, which meant that it was a failure model. So this is why Kate Merritt is saying Marxism as an ideology, it did not actually fully grasp what is required to change. The psychology, the consciousness, the attitude of every individual has to change. If we have to bring some change at a cultural level, political change is so easy. We can just pass a law, and today we can pass a law and say that everyone is equal. There's no caste, there's no gender discrimination. It's easy to pass a law, but then if the cultural change so easy. So that's what she highlights. Then she's not just contented talking about economic issues, but then she also talks about it. For the same pay scale, a woman is more educated than a man. It still happens, and 2/3 of the work that women do are unpaid. So, because the patriarchy's function is to make a woman economically dependent. So when this whole sexual, what this sexual revolution has done, it has not actually broken down anything. Only thing it has done is it has prepared the groundwork. We are now thinking different. That's the only thing. At least we can think this way. So that's the only freedom it's given us. It's just done the groundwork. But more than that, nothing. It does not disrupt the social order in any form. But then, that's in terms of education too. Education and economic dependence. So these are the two factors that has to be denied in a woman if patriarchy has to go on. So even the Nazis, when they were trying to, disentangle the entire thing, women can be educated, but only for a domestic purpose, only for the purpose of looking after family, only to do her role as a wife and mother. So not more than that. So she also points out this other book by Wollstonecraft. It's called Vindication of Rights of Women, and that was the thing that actually touched upon education of women in a very passionate way. So that was a very, she highlights about this book. So that book was very instrumental in highlighting that how important education was, the fundamental right for a woman. So this is key, isn't it? Once economic independence is there, true economic independence, where you control your finances. You don't get this paycheck and then put it in a common account or give it to your husband. So that is actually the key to breaking patriarchy. Okay, so this is what she says. And then between the 1830s and 1930s, they tried to do a few things. The purity wasn't given that much of an importance. And then they said the boys also have to be like as pure as the girls. So that's the Victorian way of bringing in some kind of egalitarianism within the society, within the, to tackle those double standards which were happening. But then, it didn't go much deeper than that. And then they were, what happened as a result of all this is that, literary wise also, the kind of literature that came out, two kind of opposing themes were there, but both these themes were actually sustaining patriarchy. One was a very rational way of thinking, like for instance, she talks about Mill and the subjugation for women, his book, and then this clearly highlights that a woman should not have education. Whereas, contrasting to that, someone like Ruskin has a chivalrous way of doing it in a very kind of polite way, where he says that a woman woman is delicate, her place is in the kitchen. So that's the same thing, but then saying it in a very sugar-coated, in a very benevolent way. So what happened at the end of both was that, it just sustained the patriarchy. That is what was happening. And again, in terms of Freud, why do we have these concepts of penis envy and women suffering castration? Why do we think that penis is something to be envied? And he does not touch upon the social angle as to why a woman would feel that way, rather than she feels castrated at birth and then she envies the penis. So that is the most patriarchal thing that can happen, and Melinda actually calls to light this thing as well, and she highlights this. So, why do you think women are still agreeable to this patriarchal system? Because it cannot function unless women are okay with it, okay with that status.
No, as you rightly said a few minutes back, when the women didn't have economic freedom as well as education, they didn't have much choice in the society. The day we are witnessing here in our own state for the last 4 or 5 decades, especially in the late 80s, 89 to be more precise, when women also has got a right to inherit properties from their parents. And we could see that today, literally today, we could see the complete change of dynamics. The women today, especially today, girls in 20s and 30s, the kind of communication they give to the elders, we understand, they are very clear. I got everything. They just don't want to be slaves to somebody. You take it back to 1929, the very famous conference held at Chengalpattu, the racial conference. I don't think at that point of time anybody anywhere in the world would have spoken about that. Where the two important resolutions, one resolution said women should be educated. There was another resolution which said women also should have rights on the property. Yes.
And those were very two big social revolutions which happened, Special Marriage Act as well as the inheritance to property. Those two, actually Periyar made certain that it was actually carried out and we got it. So that, the way it has freed a woman. So yeah, please.
Yeah. So if we see our mother-in-laws, our moms, they were got married when they were between 16 or 19. But then when it came to us, our generation, it went up to 21 or not to 25. But now the girls, they want the economic independence. They're very sure that they want to be independent, like you said, completely independent. But then at that point, they don't want to get into that marriage, that bond, because they're scared that that independence might, fall.
Yes.
So there's something that's going on right now in between the 25 to 30 age group.
Yeah.
They're contemplating whether they need to be single, they're free, they don't want to be married, they have the freedom to travel, to do whatever they want with their money, to take care of their parents. So that has it has changed a lot from, the 60s and 70s.
So why should someone get married?
That's a different question.
Yeah.
But as she rightly said, there was recently I read a paper. I don't know whether it was scientifically done research, but they say that in the Congo region, there is a lot of resistance today for marriage from the girls. There's a lot of conversation happening around this because they were the people who were for ages they were
Very rapid. But why this exit policy being closed, exit closes once you get into a marriage.
But from what I see, this exit policy happens even in 2 days or even 3 months now. That's a lot happening now. So
I see.
yeah,
You think so?
yeah.
Lot cases of divorce
Than previously.
previously. Even I saw it on TV and in a magazine and a paper that says just because my husband snores or some silly reason also there is one particular case saying my husband never fights with me so I'm divorcing him. There's nothing in it.
That's a good reason to divorce.
Actually, psychological point I'm able to understand that. Actually, because imagine if everything he nods and says okay,
Yeah, obviously, it's a very fake relationship, obviously.
But people fail to understand that. So she got a divorce again. So the very heavy rate of divorce happening in India now, and people wants freedom. As you rightly said, people doesn't want to get into marriage now because they feel that their freedom or finance would fall. You know, as we said, I feel that's the reason.
And who is responsible for?
Because of particular COVID, very difficult to get right also. Particularly the lawyer was all these things. Very, very difficult nowadays. What is going on, I know, COVID region. Because, thank you.
Welcome, welcome.
Yeah, I'm not welcome what is going on. Telling the real, scatter everything in the book, what is going on in the book region. Thank you.
No, it is nice if the exit policy happens within 3 months, but then what I usually see within the people that I am consulting is that once they get the women, they are very empowered before the marriage, they get they own lakhs and stuff like that. Once they get pregnant, and this entire family system unit is such that she has to take care of the baby, and somebody is going to leave the work, it has to be the woman. That makes her automatically economically independent, and automatically the exit door closes for at least some time till she can go back to work.
Actually, the patriarchal society, there's nothing to complain because it was very inevitable. Even you go people who live in forests, the same thing, man hunts, woman cooks. Result, woman becomes pregnant, she's very weak, she cannot fight with a lion, she cannot fight with a tiger. They have to kill a boar, so that only men has the power. So, it was always patriarchal. Only recently, in 40, 50 years, in this modern time, all kind of...
Do we have evidence to say historically that, is it natural? Patriarchy is natural or matriarchy?
Do you think all the women went and killed lion at the time?
Yes.
Yes. Can you give me examples? Can you show me examples? Not even 1%. All I have seen 1,000 films on tribals.
So did you read Valga?
Exactly.
Valga
The very first chapter is Siberian forest.
It is 1%.
No. It was like that for many years. Women were also untouched. The problem came only after the society became feudal. Until then, women were very, very dominating.
Family is the right representative.
Sorry.
Same as feudalism. Feudalism is the same as
Number two,
family.
it is wrong concept to say that men is more powerful than women.
Yes, true.
I cannot run with PT.
Exactly.
You cannot fight with a wrestler, women wrestler.
See, the thing we have. Yeah.
Whoever is trained in anything, can you fight with a commander of women? You can't do that. She will put you down in no time. It's all about your training, practice, all that. So saying that men is natural, got the power and all this, it's our more understanding.
It was inevitable to be patriarchal.
No, actually, there are studies to say that biologically that's not. See, what we are neuroplastic. The thing is to adapt to what is given to us. So every time we exert competitiveness or aggression, the testosterone levels increase. So which means that if a society expects a man to be aggressive, competitive, and to do the things that masculine things, obviously he is actually reinforcing those skills. A woman is expected to be more caring, nurturing, because that's how it is completely conditioned and socialized. So actually gender, it's not, biologically we are not much different. But socially we are made to be different. That's all.
There will be a day come very soon where there will be a communal child and individual child. Will be moving towards that. Once that also is removed, then women will be like men. That's it.
Yes. And that's what Engels also has pointed out, I think, that first, before all that, the private property and everything has to be ripped off before we come to the stage of community child rearing. Because again, sex is there in every, even the class stratification, so that's how is it. So,
Who instituted that idea that women should not get the property? Who they are? Who?
obviously it's part of patriarchy. If she gets the property, she becomes like the women of the Congo belt.
I mean, nothing to do with patriarchy. It should be
See,
a
2000
caste or religion.
The caste and
High
religion
caste-
is
high
something
caste
that is the most.
No, it was actually,
That's
Manu
what- exactly.
quote very clearly says that women are not at all considered to be human beings. So prior to Manu, there was, there were codes in Middle East also. Abura, what is that? Raja used to say. So all these codes very clearly said that women has no place in the society at all. So where is the question of they owning anything? They are only there to be slaves like other slaves to work for them.
Why use word slaves, sir? It was very natural. Let's not use
It is
slave.
not natural because there is a wonderful book
No,
called
there's the
Gentling
poet-
Caste.
there's the poet.
See, when you don't have, see, now we are sitting here and listening to us. If I don't like, I can go out, right? So there is no, it's my free will. Can I do that inside a jail? Suppose I'm a prisoner there. Can I think of going out? No, because I have to be there inside the four walls. Similarly, you may like to be slave for somebody, you may like to do anything you want. But the question is, one day if you don't want to do it, you have a choice.
Your wife is a slave for you.
No, not in my house, not at all. No, but it was in this society, it was even today, if you see in many societies, women cannot move out from the kitchen. They have to be there all the time cooking. There were houses where women will be locked, and this happened 2 generations back. It's all documented history. Men will lock the house and go, women have to be inside. Today, when they have the power of wealth, power of education, they are coming out.
See, actually, economically also doesn't make sense. When you close the gender gap, the GDP of a country increases by 26%. So just by making women and men equal in the workplace, equalizing their work, we actually, empower an economy. We are actually digging a grave under our own feet. If we are actually, supporting patriarchy or supporting the stratification system on basis of caste or class, it's a disaster for the economy.
What was the original topic? You said this is a dissertation, right?
It was a PhD dissertation.
Yeah, what was the original topic? What was that focusing at?
It was about sexual politics,
Exactly.
and then and I touched upon almost everything. I covered almost everything.
No, I'm sorry, you did, but I'm asking you, what was the outcome of this research?
One thing is that there were a lot of protests against it, and it became a talked about topic, and then that was the start of the second wave of feminism. Because people were voting, but then they didn't have control over their bodies. They couldn't abort, they didn't have free contraception, they could not have sex with whoever they pleased. So those kind of things happened. Prostitution, according to a man's kind of discussion, was happening. So that's the second wave of feminism. So this was the start of it.
We're coming to the close.
Yes.
Would you mind others also, if they
Please.
want any language
Yes.
on the choice? they
Of
can
course,
speak.
I can get off it. Anyone can.
No, no, yeah, you do stand. If you
Okay.
want to ask, எல்லாருமே வந்து கேட்கலாம்.
I can switch off the mic.
ஆமா. ம்.
When
ஏன்னா இது ரொம்ப முக்கியமான டாபிக் அப்படிங்கிறனால தமிழ்ல கூட வந்து பேசலாம்.
even now, like if கூட பாத்தீங்கன்னா abortion is still not legalized. Still people with medical issues also. They say no. Recently also I think it came in a paper. The women want to abort the baby, but the court said no, you cannot abort the baby. I think some medical thing is it's not that fatal. The baby can survive, so it will not be allowed. So that's
Over
just even
24
now,
weeks.
even now.
Over
yeah.
24 weeks, it's not because a fetus does not have a right. But after 24 weeks, it becomes a baby because it's viable. So at that stage, we cannot.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's still the same state of affairs. Sorry, state of affairs, because a woman cannot decide whether she wants the baby or she doesn't want to have the baby. You know, it's like again a choice when you talk about it. You know, so that's what I would like.
Rathika, I request you to ask all the women to say something on this topic.
Yeah,
Even
Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act is there in India. It is clearly stated that how many weeks it can be, within how many weeks it can be terminated, medical terminated. If the fetus go beyond that period, it will be dangerous to the life of the mother also sometimes.
No, actually, this is in UK as well. Till 24 weeks, we can abort because the fetus does not have a right in the country. But after that, after 24 weeks, the baby is viable. It becomes a baby. It has a right. You cannot kill someone. So that's why the act was like that.
If at all you want to decide whether you would like to have a child or not, you should spend within the 24 weeks or.
Exactly.
Yes,
Or you want to give up your child for adoption?
Yes,
then it's
yes.
by all means.
That is the. But one thing I would like to ask anyone of here, but the rate of divorce in India is 1% is should. But that means that all the couples are living happily with each other. So that what prevents them to come out?
No, because when they are accepting extramarital relationships, everything is under
Yes,
cover.
that is either of them not faithful to each
No,
other.
definitely not.
That is hypocrisy, that is injustice to each other.
The most important in the
They are not
society, I
open. They are not open to each other. They are not justice to each other, right to each other.
Yes.
That kind of
But then the society is okay with that, isn't it? They are not, nobody knows about these extramarital affairs. It's all under the carpet. And then there's kind of all rosy picture outside. So it suits everyone.
It doesn't look nice.
No, it doesn't.
Actually,
Sir, why?
actually the worst thing happened in India is widow system and sati. Yeah, you know sati? Because we are officially and traditionally and like a celebration, you make a woman widow, break her bangles, no dress, white dress, and you have to stay. You are not supposed to sleep with another person. You are not supposed to attend good functions. This is something very shit happened because this only happens because the man was so jealous. If even after my death, my wife should not sleep with anybody. It just comes
So
from
there was another reason
dominant
for
jealousy.
that.
Same with sati,
Yeah. See, this enforced widowhood and sati happened for the reason of, having the caste purification. Because a woman, we have to match the number of men and women in a caste system. If men become excess, they'll get married to younger brides. But a woman becomes excess after a man's death, she has to have an enforced widowhood or she has to die with her husband. Because if she is alone, then she would go marry or have a relationship with someone of another caste, and that would affect the caste purification. So that was the reason why Sati and, because historically, if you see the tier 1, 2 kind of caste systems had more of this rather than the caste which was supposed to be like 4, 5. Because where caste purity is important, that's where these kind of enforced widowhoods were.
What if the widow marries the same Brahmin? It's a different caste.
Yeah, but
if
that
she marries
wasn't,
in the same
it wasn't
thing,
happening. It wasn't
if she
happening.
goes runs away
That
with the same.
Brahmin has an option of a younger girl. Why would he want to marry a widow? That's what was happening. He always has an option. He's always a man.
No, I'm telling you, basically it's the jealousy of the men. My wife should not sleep with anybody, even after my death. So this is the idea. This is the worst idea of the human being. Man, the man. I mean, that's what. Huh?
Yeah, sir, 1 minute.
So you are touching on Engels and Sweet. I have read the book by Engels, family.
Original family.
Yeah, original family. State and here. So in which he discusses on the family and the state that was developed to protect the private property. Both are the function over the private property. And in Soviet Union they tried to address that by bringing the state control on the means of production and the communal teachers and the education.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the success, the amount of success they had might be different, but I would like to what do you take on that? So the Engels, the way the Engels.
See, that's what I think, I touched upon it. So Marxism as an ideology, it did not take into account the change in a human consciousness before it can bring about a political change. So just bringing on these kind of laws where, women are free to choose their citizenship, economic independence and everything without actually changing a human consciousness will actually revert it back to square one, because that's what happened 27 years later. So when Stalin, passed these laws in 1936, he made divorce, illegal, contraception illegal. It came back to square one. And even those communal kitchens and communal child rearing, the women started feeling the burden of it because there was no basic attitudinal change. Without a change in attitude, you're trying to change, bring about a political change is not going to work. Cultural changes, that's what I said, the cultural change is a lot more difficult than political change. So that's my take on it.
Anybody, any women who want to say, share or thoughts here? Joyce is the boss. You have to be participating. What is the point we win again and again?
I have a live example. After 8 years of marriage, never enter into kitchen for cooking.
That's
Who
good.
you? You have a wow.
Not any household work.
Okay.
So, but I'm facing a lot of problems due to that. But I'm ready to face it.
Okay.
I want to tell one
Sir, my
thing. First, generally I'm telling you, only one fight. Past 2 decades, only on what's going on in Tamil Nadu, in particular rural women, self-help group is leading role for women empowerment. But I do not know what is the reason behind it. It's not work out in city areas, particularly underprivileged people. I don't know upper level, but here the bigger self-help groups are big role in Tamil Nadu economy. Across the nation, Tamil Nadu is the leading state for self-help. Is what's going on.
We think that
Yeah.
only women empowerment in terms of economy can actually break the system.
Yeah.
Yes.
What about the power of habit? The power of the habit of
That
housing?
doesn't change.
That will
because my
either
money-
with the generation or.
Even local administration, their parts will.
You cannot
Education
change,
models.
you cannot change the current generation, you cannot change my mother, you can't change my
Yeah,
mother. But the next generation
That
automatically.
never change. That will take, I think, 100 more years to change because
Because
when
we
we
don't
come
teach
to,
us.
But
she
it's
is the
a,
earning member of the family. Her husband doesn't work. She's the earning member of the family, but she is afraid to ask her husband to drop her to work. Right?
Who
So-
holds the account?
She has the control of the entire finances. She does the work of paying the loan and building the house or whatever. But at the end of it, he doesn't work. He is at home full time. But she can't ask him to drop her to work, even on a rainy day, even when she cannot get the bus.
why?
What is it?
Because she says, how can I ask him?
Why?
Exactly. Now this is
So
how
that's
the
the
cultural
mindset of-
change. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So we can bring about. We can just pass a law and say that everyone's equal. Everyone, women. Tomorrow, but then this power of the habit of the mind. So that's where we need to.
You cannot expect the habit to change in a particular
No, it won't,
generation.
it won't. It's
We
not
don't
a change
expect
that
also,
gets-
but the next generation is different. Some time back, we had a healthy debate on marriages and all about it. Surprisingly, all the girls in the early 20s who spoke about, their views were quite different from the traditional ones. Nobody spoke in favor of the marriage system or child or anything of that kind. Let's hear from another student.
Yeah, please.
I agree with sir's statement. Actually, I can see many of my friends. They are very much interested in many social activities, but yet they can't spend their time for those activities. The main reason is they are saying my families will not accept that I am going out after my school hours or after my college hours. And although for many other courses like UPSC or many government exam courses will be there, but they are not allowed to go and get trained for that because it is above the college hours. Whatever you want to do, you can do within college hours, not above that.
So this is where a woman gives up her control on a plate, on a platter to the family and says, you can take away my control and my
But that women After she gets that education, she goes to work. In that time, she gets economically independent. She becomes economically independent and she is not dependent on that family. That time she gets some upper hand over that time limit what she's
Still allowed to go out at night, whatever time she wants.
but she gets somewhat upper hand in her own time limits. So like they can't say that you should come within this time, but you can spend your
She's
time.
given some concession.
Yeah.
This is a classic example where a woman agrees to be part of the power dynamic, the power.
Yeah, but she's afraid when she gets it married, when she gets into the topic of marriage, because she's afraid again I'm going to the same place while I'm studying my school, while I'm studying my college, where I had so much of problems and limits. So I can't get married. I'm not ready to go into that again a smaller circle. So still although we are saying many women are changing all those stuffs, but there are still that crowd of people, crowd of women who cannot do what they want, what they like actually.
They're restricted by their own.
Yes.
Today, most of the parents of my kind, when their daughters come and say, this weekend I have sleep over, then they are sleeping short. He has to say, take a minute.
What is wrong with cooking and what is wrong with childbearing? What is wrong with
Nothing
cooking?
is wrong.
Yeah, why do you look down
But that
upon
is
that?
exactly why
It's a lovely work, you know.
That's the exact question that we are asking the men. What is
Because you
wrong
have to
with
share
it?
the work with husband, men and women. You are sharing this. There is nothing to feel insult about it. Cooking or cleaning or anything. You know?
Question வந்து எல்லாமே வந்து அதே மாதிரியே நம்ம கேட்கலாம். நீங்க கேட்கறது எங்க அப்பா காலேஜ் ப்ரொஃபஸரா இருந்தா நானும் காலேஜ் ப்ரொஃபஸர், நான் டாக்டரா இருந்தாலும் டாக்டரா இருக்கிறேன். அதே மாதிரி கிச்சன் இன்னைக்கு பொண்ணு என்ன சொல்றாங்க, இவ்வளவு நேரம் நாங்க சமையல் பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தோம், நாங்க வந்து எங்க படிப்பை சாக்ரிஃபைஸ் பண்ணோம் இல்லையா. அதே மாதிரி கொஞ்ச நாளைக்கு இந்த பையன் இன்னைக்கு ஒண்ணு வந்து எஸ்டாப்ளிஷ் ஆயிடுச்சு. என்ன எஸ்டாப்ளிஷ் ஆயிடுச்சுன்னா, பெண்கள் வந்து ஆண்களை விட பல மடங்கு வந்து எல்லா துறையிலையும் வந்து சிறப்பா இருக்காங்கன்றது உண்மை. இதுல வந்து ரெண்டாவது கருத்தே இல்லை. காரணம் ஒண்ணு அறிவு மட்டும், ரெண்டாவது வந்து அவங்க கிட்ட இருக்கிற அந்த வேகம் வந்து நீங்க சாதனை பார்க்க முடியாது. ரெண்டாவது அவங்க கண்டுபிடிச்ச இன்னொரு மாபெரும் உண்மை பெண்கள் என்ன கண்டுபிடிச்சாங்க அப்படின்னா, ஆண்கள் ஒண்ணுமே செய்யாம பெருசா செஞ்ச மாதிரி இவ்வளவு நாள் கதை பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கான். அவனால தனக்குன்னு ஒண்ணு எடுக்கணும் செய்ய திருப்பி பார்த்தா யாராவது கொடுக்குற மாதிரி இருக்கிறதுனால இன்னைக்கு வந்து பல லெவல்ல வந்து பெண்கள் வந்து அதுக்கு எதிர்ப்பு தெரிவிக்கிறாங்க. நீங்க அப்ப வந்து இல்ல நீங்க காலகாலமா உங்க பாட்டி தெரிஞ்சுக்கிறாங்க, நீங்களும் அதை செய்யணும்னு சொன்னா எப்படி நியாயமாக முடியும்? சொல்ல ரைட்டு
இல்ல ஆக்சுவலி இப்ப நீங்க குலத்தொழில் அப்படி பேசுறீங்க.
குலத்தொழில் சொல்லுங்க
சார். இட் வாஸ் நதிங் லைக் தோ அவன் செருப்பு தட்டிலிட்டு நீங்க நடந்து போகணும், மகாராஜா நடந்து போகணும். ஈவன் a king should walk without slippers. So he is a technologist. He is something like a footwear engineer, an ordinary person. கார்பரேட் ஓபன் பண்ணிட்டு அவன் பண்ண வேண்டியது
தாத்தாக்கு தாத்தா கம்ப்யூட்டர்
nothing wrong designing a shoe. No, million people are using it. It's nothing wrong.
Nothing wrong, but
Nothing
who has
wrong.
to do it?
Who has to
Let us
choose
all
it?
do it.
You asked, nobody asked me to do it, you know. I was 15, I studied 3 MAs, 6 diplomas, nobody paid me money, you know. I decided, I speak fluent German and French, I decided, nobody forced me anything on me. So you have to decide, I have to do that. Nobody forced.
மனுஷபுத்திரன் சார் வந்து கடைசியா இதுக்கு வந்து காரணம் பதில் சொல்லிடுவார், அதோட முடிச்சிடலாம். கேள்விக்கு அவர் வந்து அருமையான கேள்வி கேட்கிறார். அவங்க வேலையை செஞ்சுட்டு இருக்கு, உங்களுக்கு என்ன பிரச்சனை? அந்த மைக் கூட கொடுத்துருங்க. மைக் இது வந்து தினம் தினம் எழுப்பப்படுற கேள்வி. ஏன்னா எதுக்கு படிக்கணும், படிச்சு உங்களுக்கு என்ன பிரயோஜனம்? இதோட முடிஞ்சுதான்.
அவங்களுக்கு வேலையை செய்யணும் என்ன தப்புன்னு கேட்கறது, அது கேட்கலாது. அது யாரும் டிசைட் பண்றாங்கிறது தான் இப்போ கேள்வி. யார் எந்த வேலையை செய்யணுங்கிறத யார் டிசைட் ஒரு சோசியல் ஹைராக்கில சில விஷயங்கள் இப்போ உதாரணம்னா 20 மணி நேரம் வேலை செஞ்சுட்டு இருந்தாங்க. அப்புறம் எல்லாத்தையும் 8 மணி நேரம் வேலைக்காக நம்ம குறைச்சி போராடுறோம். 20 மணி நேரம் வேலையை செஞ்சுட்டு இருந்திருக்காங்க, 14 மணி நேரம் வேலையை ஒரு நாளைக்கு செஞ்சுட்டு இருந்திருக்காங்க. ஏன் 8 ஹவர்ஸ் ஒர்க்குக்காக வெயிட் பண்ணாங்க? அப்போ ஜெர்மன் பயாஸ் வந்து போகணும் அப்படின்னு சொன்னா பயாலஜிக்கலா சில விஷயங்கள் இருக்குல்ல, அதை நம்ம சேஞ்ச் பண்ண முடியாது. இப்போ குழந்தை எடுத்துக்கிறது இந்த மாதிரி விஷயங்கள் மற்ற எல்லாமே சேஞ்ச் பண்ண முடியாது தானே, மற்ற எல்லாமே சேஞ்ச் பண்ண முடியாது தானே. ஹியூமன் ரிசோர்ஸ் இருக்கு இல்லையா, அது ரொம்ப வேல்யூபிள். நம்ம இந்தியன் சொசைட்டில மேக்சிமம் ஹியூமன் ரிசோர்ஸை அன்வான்டாக நம்ம சமையல் பயன்படுத்தும். இவரோட ஹியூமன் ரிசோர்ஸ் சொன்னாங்க. இன்னைக்கு குளோபலைசேஷன் அதை ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்காக மாற்றிச்சு. சரிங்களா, குளோபலைசேஷன் மாற்றிச்சு. அதனால உழைப்புல இருந்து பெண்களை விடுதலை செய்யறதுடைய முதல் வேலை ட்ரெடிஷ்னல் ஒர்க்ல இருந்து அவங்க விடுதலை செய்யணும். ட்ரெடிஷ்னலா இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒர்க்ல இருந்து விமனை லிபரேட் பண்ணிட்டா அதுக்கப்புறம் யார் என்ன வேலை செய்யறதுங்களோ அவங்க டிசைட் பண்ணிக்கிறாங்க. ஆனால் அந்த ட்ரெடிஷனலா இருக்கக்கூடிய அந்த ஹைராக்கியை உடைக்க மாட்டேங்குது. அது ரொம்ப முக்கியம். அப்பதான் மற்ற லிபரேஷனை பற்றி நம்ம பேசவே முடியும். ஒரு சாப்பாட்டு லிபரேட் வந்து செக்ஷுவல் லிபரேஷன்லாம் பற்றி எப்போ பேச
சார். அதனால அவர் சொன்னதுக்குள்ள செருப்பு தைக்கிறதோ பணம் தைக்கிறதோ
ஒரு ஆட்டோமொபைல் இன்ஜினியருக்கு ஸ்டேட்டஸ் அவனுக்கு இருக்கா, ஒரு மெக்கானிக் ஷாப்ல இருக்க ஒருத்தருக்கு இல்ல
MIT ஆட்டோமொபைல் இன்ஜினியரிங் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு வரணும்னா வீட்டில் உட்கார வச்சு பேசுறதுன்னு தெருவில் வந்து மெக்கானிக் வேலை பார்க்கணும்னு கூப்பிட்டு வீட்டில் உட்கார வச்சு பேசுமா அவனுக்கு பொண்ணு கொடுப்போமா? கேட்க ஸ்டேட்டஸ் இருக்க சோஷியல் ஸ்டேட்டஸ். ரெண்டாவது
ஸ்கில் இஸ் ஆஸ் குட் as an automobile engineer.
எல்லா ஸ்கில்லுமே திரும்ப திரும்ப சரியான முயற்சியும் பயிற்சியும் இருந்தால் கற்றுக்க முடியும்னு ப்ரூவ் பண்ணியாச்சு. உலகத்துல யார் வேணாலும் எதை வேணாலும் கற்றுக்க முடியும்னு ப்ரூவ் பண்ணியாச்சு. அவ்வளோதான். எனவே நம்ம வந்து டைம் ஆச்சுட்டு தான் நீங்கள் ரொம்ப ரொம்ப
ஜப்பான்ல பார்த்தா சமுதாயம் எடுத்து நாம தான் இந்த நாட்டுக்கு போராடணும், நாம தான் இந்த தொழிலை செய்யணும்னு சொல்லிட்டு இருந்தாங்க. ஜப்பான் அது சொன்னாலே பெரிய ஒரு பிரச்சனையே வந்தது. ஜப்பான் அரசாங்கம் முடிவு பண்ணிச்சு இனிமே அதெல்லாம் பண்ணாதீங்க, எல்லாருமே எல்லா டேலண்ட் இருக்குன்னு சொன்னதுனால தான் ஜப்பான் நீ வந்து உலகத்தை முன்னணியில நிற்கிறீங்க. மேட் இன் ஜப்பான் சொன்னாலே அதுக்கு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா
சோஷியல் டிரான்ஸ்ஃபர்மேஷனுக்கு தான் 100 வருஷத்துமா போராடிட்டு இருக்காங்க. இதை நம்ம வந்து அவ்வளோ ஈஸியாக எடுத்துட முடியாது. இன்னைக்கு இந்தியாவில் ஒரு வளர்ந்த மாநிலமா வந்து தமிழ்நாடு இருக்குங்கிறத நம்ம வந்து கண்கூடா பார்க்குறோம். எல்லா பேராமீட்டர்ஸும் ஸ்டாண்டிங் வந்து டாப் அண்ட் வி ஆர் இன் லெவல் வித் மெனி யூரோப்பியன் கண்ட்ரீஸ்னா அது மிக முக்கிய காரணம் சோஷியல் டிரான்ஸ்ஃபர்மேஷன் தான். இதை நம்ம ஈஸியாக வந்து அவங்க அந்த வேலையை செய்யட்டும் இல்லை படித்து என்ன பிரயோஜனம் அப்படிங்கிறது வந்து திரும்பவும் 100 வருஷத்துக்கு முன்னே கொண்டு போகணும்னு பயமாக இருக்கிறது. வேற ஒன்றுமே இல்லை. பட் எனிவே ஐ மீன் ஷி வில் ப்ரொபோஸ் ஃபார்மல் நோட் ஆஃப் தேங்க். பட் ஐ எம் எக்ஸ்ட்ரீம்லி ஹாப்பி. மெனி ஆஃப் யூ ஹவ் கம் ஆஃப் அந்த க்ரௌடுக்கு அங்கே ஏன்னா அங்கேயே வந்து நடக்கிறதுனால அதுதான் நினச்சிட்டு போய் உட்காந்துக்கலாம் அந்த மீட்டிங்கில். பட் எல்லாமே அங்கேயும் வந்து எஜுகேஷன் தான். எனிவே வந்து கீப் கம்மிங் அண்ட் யூ நோ தட் எவ்ரி சண்டே வி மீட். ஒரு சண்டே மட்டும் வி மீட் ஹியர். The discussions will be in English. And today proved to be really awesome because many of you have உண்மையா சொன்னா ஸ்பீக்கரை விட நம்ம தான் நிறைய பேசுகிறோம்.
அர்ஷா கேள்வி கேட்கறது கொஞ்சம் கஷ்டம் எனக்கு.
அர்ஷாவோட
she initiated the talk. So இப்படிதான் இருக்கணும்.
Thanks everyone. Thanks to Manishiputran sir for attending this program in spite of that program and giving this award to us. And thanks to Radhika ma'am for an interactive book review. And thanks to Oli sir, and thanks for all the audience who participated and interacted in this session. Thanks to all.